I'm going to do a little informal recoil test as long as I'm out here shooting 7/8 of an ounce, 1300 foot per second loads, which is what I've been doing with the Fab Arm, which is 5 pounds 15 ounces, and I'll just see what my shoulder tells me compared to a heavier gas gun, that being 6 1/4 pound Browning B80, which has been a favorite for many years. This Browning B80 20 gauge alloy is all factory, with the exception of a True Lock modified extended choke. This is a 3-inch chamber, which I think these shells are peppy enough to cycle. As you can see, the B80, although it's gas operated, this is essentially Beretta 302.5, very similar to the 302, 303 action from Beretta. I like the B80 because it doesn't have the hard rubber curved butt plate that you find on Beretta 303. So the 303 is an excellent firearm. And it's not much of a recoil pad. It's rubber. There's a little texture here, but you can see it's, I wouldn't even call it a recoil pad. It's a rubber butt plate. But it's also gas operated and a heavier gun. Heavier by 5 ounces to be exact. So yeah, is the B80 softer shooting? Absolutely, it's softer shooting. For those two reasons, gas operation and a little advantage there with the heavier weight. I don't know if you can make it out on camera or not, but this is a Browning stamped barrel with standard invector chokes, no aftermarket threading. It was never a fixed choke barrel. And the 303s and Browning B80s, they have steel rated barrels up through modified with the factory Browning chokes. If you're going to go with True Lock, up to improved modified with steel. So I love a B80. And there are a lot of guns that I have more than one of, and a B80 is certainly it. A lot of people would not consider it a high-end gun. It's hard to find them with good-looking wood. It took me some shopping just to find this thing. And this is just about as good as it gets. The date code is PV, so that'll tell you how old this thing is. Generally speaking, one of my problems with Beretta semi-autos is the safety placement. I don't like the safety placement at the front of the trigger guard at all. However, with the B80 and the 303 and the 390 for that matter, it's not plastic, it's metal, and you don't have an oversized trigger guard. So it's very easy to hit the metal, knock off the safety, and come back and take your bird. So, larger trigger guard in most cases, something like an 870 or a traditional Browning automatic 5, where you have a nice generous safety at the back of the trigger guard. For me, that's a big deal and is preferable. The exception though would be the Beretta 303 or this B80. Doesn't bother me one bit in the field. Looks like we have a few plays left, so let's break them. So to finish up, recoil is a popular topic, a perpetually popular topic, and there's no exact formula for felt recoil or for shooting comfort. And there never will be, because it's the human element. As far as actual free recoil, it's pretty easy to calculate. And with load sensors, you can also measure the amount of skin pressure, which has a lot to do with felt recoil, as does free recoil. So what's the big difference? As far as I'm concerned, the number one issue, other than gun weight, would be gun fit. Because if the gun is slapping you across the face, if it's poking you in the shoulder, if it doesn't fit you perfectly, it's just not going to be as comfortable to shoot. And the only way you can determine that for yourself is to go out and shoot a bunch of guns and perhaps get the services of an expert stock fitter. It takes a while. Not every gun fits me perfectly. The fab arm does. So that helps. Recoil pads also help. So as a rule of thumb, if you have the right durometer recoil pad, fairly generous recoil pad, like the 1-inch SC100 Pachmayr pad, which I'm thoroughly impressed with in that fab arm, you're looking at in the area of a 20% felt recoil reduction. About 20%. And of course the weight of the gun, that's easily calculated as well. An ounce or two doesn't mean much, but if we're talking about a half pound, yeah, there's a difference. And gas guns, that's the only current action that really kills recoil. So you're looking at, from the measurements and studies that I've seen with load sensors, about a 30% reduction in recoil with a gas action. So if you're recoil sensitive and you don't mind a slight amount of weight, something like the L4S 12 gauge is one of my favorites. I have an old B80 12 gauge that I took to Argentina, which is about an 8-pounder. No recoil pad to speak of, but it's an 8-pound gun, steel receiver, and that's a real puppy dog to shoot all day, which I've done. So it depends on how much you shoot as well. Overly light guns, this is just my opinion, I hate them because I'm not going to make it across the skeet field without wincing in pain. And if I can't practice with the gun, if I can't have fun practicing, I'm not going to practice with it. I just won't use it as much. So the loads I were using here, 1,300 feet per second, 7/8 of an ounce, Remington Nitro Sporting Clays load, a little faster than typical, right? Your typical 20 gauge load is 7/8 of an ounce, 1,200 feet per second. So if you're going to spend significant time on a clays course with that fab arm D2, you want the recoil pad and go with 1,200 feet per second or 1,180 foot per second, 7/8 of an ounce. No Benelli click over and under shotguns aren't going to jam on you. So, but that is a peppy enough load where I had good ejection with a 3-inch chambered B80. So, it's also hard shot, which is why I like it. So that's up to you. The more you walk, the more you're going to fall in love with a light gun. And that's the case with the D2. So people debate back and forth. It's like, really, it's up to you how much walking you're going to be doing. Like if it's just a busy day on the dove field, go with the heavier gun. And if you're going to use primarily clays use, absolutely go with a steel receivered gun. Whether it's the fab arm Elos 2 Elite or a similar model, you know, that's why they call them choices. In the case of the Elos 2 Elite, you're talking about 6 pounds, I believe 10.3 ounces. So when you drop over 10 ounces, that's significant. 1 ounce either way doesn't matter. As far as the balance point, surprisingly, it's very, very close, whether it's the alloy receiver on the fab arm or the steel. The balance point is maybe a 1/4 inch forward on the alloy, but it is minimal. And it's rare to have an alloy gun that's balanced that well. It gets pretty tricky. But fab armors lighten their barrels, and I presume the steel insert adds maybe an ounce, a little bit, to the receiver. And of course the aftermarket recoil pad, the SC100, I can tell you that adds exactly 1 ounce. So to the back of the gun, which is the right place in the case of the fab arm. So if you're debating what to do with your income tax money, your refund, hopefully, do some shopping and some comparison, and if you're at one of the major shoots, try as many guns as you can, whether it's fab arm or some other brand, until you find that special gun that speaks to you, and then Bob's your uncle. So we'll see you next time. 60 degrees out here today, a little breezy, but I'll tell you, March the 2nd, days like this don't happen very often, so it's time to be outdoors. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time.